October 17, 1881, Dodge City, Kansas. Wind came off the high cut like it had teeth. I was on my knees in dust and pebbles, fingers clawed into brittle grass that tore loose with every shake. Below me, the ravine fell away in a hard drop. Stone, scrub, and a ribbon of dry creek bed that looked as thin as thread from up here. My skirt snagged on thorn, my boots scraped for purchase and found nothing but sliding shale. I remember the sound most, not my own breathing, his. Slow, measured, too close for a place like that. A shadow crossed my hands, a man's shape blocking the low sun, hat brim, coat hem, a long frame that didn't hurry even when I was one slip away from vanishing. I turned my head enough to see him without letting go. Old but not broken, beard gone mostly gray, eyes like river stones, cold-looking until you stared long enough to see the weight in them. He didn't ask my name. He didn't ask why a girl was alone above a ravine. He just lowered himself to the ground, belly to dirt, and slid forward inch by inch like he'd done it before. His hand came out, broad palm, scars across the knuckles, then stopped short. "Don't reach," he said, quiet as prayer. "You'll lunge." That was the first thing Arthur ever said to me. I wanted to tell him I wasn't afraid. The truth is my arms were burning and my throat tasted like iron. He took his belt off with one hand, kept his other forearm pressed to the ground like a stake. He looped the leather around a rock the size of a saddlebag and tested it with a tug that made the stone groan. Then he slid the belt toward me. "Wrap it," he said, "around your wrist, twice." My fingers barely worked. When I got it on, he tightened the belt by crawling backward, slow and sure, drawing me up the way you draw a bucket from a well. Pebbles clicked down into the emptiness. My boots kicked. My face scraped rock. I didn't cry out. Fear makes you proud for no good reason. When my chest finally cleared the lip, he hooked an arm under mine and rolled me away from the edge like he was moving a sack of grain. We lay there a moment, sky spinning, wind pressing, my heart hammering like a trapped thing. Arthur sat up first, looked at my hands, looked at the ravine. Then he stood and offered no hand this time, just turned and started walking. I pushed myself up and followed because the land around Dodge City has a way of swallowing a lone girl whole. He didn't speak on the trail, not once. But when we reached his mountain house, dark timber, stone chimney, a single window like an eye, he opened the door, stepped aside, and watched me cross the threshold. The last light bled off the ridge behind us, and then I heard it. Metal on metal, a bolt sliding home, locked from the outside.
I stood just inside the door when the bolt slid shut. The sound settled in my chest, heavier than the fall almost had. I didn't rush it. Panic wastes breath, and breath was already short. I set my hand flat against the wood. Thick planks, hand cut, old work, the kind meant to keep weather out and people in. I heard his boots move away. Not fast, not sneaking, measured, like everything else about him. The room held a single table, 2 chairs, a narrow cot tucked against the wall, and a stove cold enough to smell like iron. No dust, no clutter. Someone lived here with purpose, someone who didn't expect company. I tried the door once, just once. It didn't give. Through the small window, I saw him circle the house, checking the ground like he was reading a story written in dirt. He stopped at the tree line and stood there still as fence post, watching the slope below. Only then did it strike me. He wasn't guarding me from inside the cabin. He was guarding the cabin from something else. Night came quick in the hills. Shadows climbed the walls, wind slipped through the cracks, and made the lamp flame twitch when I lit it. I ate the bread he left on the table because hunger has a voice louder than fear. Hours passed. Then footsteps returned. Slow, careful, close enough that I could hear the leather creak. I held my breath. The latch lifted. The door opened a handspan. Arthur leaned in, keeping his body between me and the dark. "You sleep," he said. "Don't open this door for anyone, not even me." Then he shut it again. The bolt slid home. I didn't sleep. Sometime past midnight, I heard it. Breathing. Not his. Low. Wet. Right outside the window. I froze on the cot, eyes fixed on the glass. Moonlight showed the blur of movement. Something crouched, something close enough that its breath fogged the pain. A whisper followed. My name. I hadn't told Arthur my name. The sound scraped along my nerves, soft and coaxing, like it knew me, like it had been waiting. Then another sound cut through it. Steel dragged free. A single sharp command from Arthur, low and absolute. Back. The breathing vanished. Morning came gray and quiet. When the door finally opened, Arthur looked 10 years older than he had the day before. Dirt streaked his sleeves. His eyes hadn't closed once. He didn't ask if I'd heard anything. He already knew. "We'll go back up the peak today," he said. I stared at him. "You left me here," I said. He met my gaze without flinching. "And you're alive." That was when I understood. This wasn't kindness. It was necessity.
Arthur didn't wait for agreement. He handed me a coat thicker than mine and started up the trail like daylight was something that could be wasted. The climb pulled breath from my lungs and thought from my head. Rock scraped skin. Pines leaned close, crowding the path like they were listening. He kept a distance between us, close enough to block a fall, far enough to leave no question who led. When we reached the high peak again, he stopped short of the edge. "This place," he said, looking nowhere near me, "doesn't belong to anyone who rushes it." I didn't answer. Wind tore at my skirt. Below us, the land spread wide and empty, pretending it had never tried to kill me. He watched the sky, counted clouds like they mattered. Then he turned back. "You stay until sundown," he said. I laughed once, sharp and wrong. "You're leaving me again." "Yes." My mouth opened, closed. Pride stepped in where fear wanted to speak. He walked away without another word. Hours dragged like chains. Sun climbed, dropped. My legs went numb from standing still. Every sound felt closer than it should. Stones clicking, brush stirring, a scrape that might have been nothing. When shadows stretched long, I saw it. A shape down the trail. Not Arthur. Tall, bent in a way men aren't meant to bend. Its head tilted, listening. When it smiled, the mouth went too wide. It raised a hand. My voice died in my throat. Then a rock struck near its feet, hard, precise. The thing hissed, backed away, melted into timber like it had never been solid at all. Arthur didn't look at me. He just said, "Walk." That night, the bolt slid shut again, locked. I sat on the floor this time, back against the door, knife clenched tight enough to ache. Midnight came with whispers, closer now, clearer. Promises, regrets. My mother's voice, dead 5 years. I pressed my hands over my ears until they rang. Outside, Arthur paced, never entering, never leaving. At dawn, he opened the door. "You saw it," he said. I nodded. "It won't stop," he continued. "Not while you're here, not while I am." "What is it?" I asked. His jaw set. "A debt," he said, "left unpaid." He looked older in the morning light, smaller. "The last night's coming, and you won't like what it asks." That was the first time fear chose honesty over pride, and stayed.
Arthur made me climb again before dusk. Higher this time, narrower trail, stone biting through the soles of my boots until my feet went half numb and useless. He didn't offer help. He didn't slow. The mountain didn't forgive weakness, and neither did he. When we reached a ledge, he stopped and turned on me so sudden I nearly collided with his chest. "Listen," he said. His voice had weight now, finality. "Tonight you do exactly what I say. No questions, no mercy for yourself." I searched his face for cruelty. Found none. Only resolve sharpened to hurt. At sundown, he bound my wrists, not tight enough to bruise, tight enough to remind me I wasn't in control. He led me down blindfolded at dawn's edge, his hand firm at my elbow, his breath steady while mine fractured. When the cloth came off, I was back at the cabin. He pushed me inside. The bolt slid home, harder than before. Night arrived wrong, too quiet, no wind, no insects. The mountain held its breath. Then the whispers returned, but not from the window, from the walls, from the floor, from inside my head. "Sarah," they said, every voice I had ever loved folded into one. "He promised." My chest burned. I staggered back, palms flat against the door, fighting the pull to answer. Outside, boots stopped. Arthur's shadow crossed the window. "Face down," he commanded. "Now." I dropped, cheek to floor, heart hammering. The cabin shook once, like something heavy had leaned its full weight against it. Wood groaned. A sound followed that wasn't breath. It was hunger. Something struck the door hard enough to rattle the hinges. Again, each impact closer to breaking. I screamed his name then, couldn't stop it. The noise ceased. Silence rushed in so fast it hurt. When the bolt slid open, dawn was leaking pale and thin across the ground. Arthur stood there bareheaded, eyes rimmed red, blood at his sleeve where no skin was broken. "It's done," he said. I didn't believe him. Neither did the mountain, because that was when another man stepped into view from the trees. Younger, broad-shouldered, familiar in a way that made my stomach drop. He smiled at Arthur. "Brother," he said. Arthur didn't move when the man called him brother. Neither did I. The newcomer's coat was fine wool, town-made. His boots held polish. Nothing about him belonged on that mountain, except his smile, sharp, knowing, satisfied. I knew that smile. Dodge City wore it on men who collected debts without dirtying their hands. "You shouldn't have brought her," the brother said, eyes sliding to me like I was already counted. The condition was clear. Arthur finally turned. His voice stayed level, but his shoulders told the truth. The condition was cruelty dressed as law. The brother laughed softly. "That's rich coming from you." That was when it spilled out, not all at once, but heavy and unavoidable. Years back, Arthur owned the land, the cabin, the peak. The town boss wanted it, said the mountain sat wrong, brought sickness, stirred talk. Arthur refused, wouldn't sell, wouldn't bend. So the boss made an offer through blood. Arthur's brother sided with him, signed papers Arthur never saw, claimed the mountain cursed and needed a keeper, someone to shoulder it alone, someone to lock himself in each night and keep the thing fed with fear and silence. Arthur stayed. The town prospered, and every few years a girl wandered too close to the cliff. "Accidents," the brother said lightly, "until you interfered." Arthur looked at me then. "You weren't meant to be taken. You were meant to witness." I understood in pieces that hurt to assemble. The locking, the watching, the rules. He wasn't keeping me prisoner. He was keeping the truth alive. The brother stepped forward. "It's done now. You broke the cycle. You showed her." His smile widened, which means the claim reverts. Arthur shook his head once. "No."
From his coat he drew folded papers, creased, weathered, signed years ago, names, seals, proof the land transfer had been forced, illegal, witnessed by a woman long dead, my mother. The brother's smile cracked. You disappeared. No one listens to ghosts. Arthur met his gaze. They listened to records. I left the mountain before noon. Arthur didn't follow. He didn't need to. Months later, Dodge City whispered about land reclaimed, about a boss stripped bare by his own documents, about a man who vanished before the hearing, leaving silence like a locked door finally opened. I never saw Arthur again, but the mountain sleeps now, and I learned this. Some men don't rescue you to be kind. They do it so the truth can walk out alive.
What survives when the door opens? I am an old woman now. My hands shake when winter comes, and my knees ache the way mountains do before a storm. Dodge City grew teeth and then lost them. Names that once carried weight are carved shallow on stones no one visits. But some nights, when the wind slips low and steady, I remember the sound of that bolt. Not with fear, with clarity. After I left the mountain, I didn't tell my story right away. I learned early that truth needs timing more than volume. I married quietly, worked hard, buried my mother knowing she had stood as a witness when it mattered most. Arthur never came down, but his absence did more damage than his presence ever could. The town boss lost everything without a shot fired. His own signatures undid him. His allies scattered. Even Arthur's brother vanished, run out not by violence, but by exposure. Men like him don't survive daylight. People asked why Arthur never claimed the land for himself. They didn't understand. Arthur didn't want ownership. He wanted release. The curse wasn't the thing on the mountain. It was what men were willing to sacrifice so they wouldn't have to face their own wrongs. Arthur bore that weight until proof could stand on its own. And then he let go. I went back once, years later. The cabin was empty, door hanging open, no bolt, no lock, just sunlight on bare floorboards and dust drifting slow, harmless. The mountain felt quiet, not healed, but honest. Here's what I learned and what I leave you with. Not every cage is built to keep you small. Some are built to keep the truth alive until the world is ready to face it. If this story stayed with you, if you felt the silence, the weight, the waiting, then don't walk past it. Subscribe, like, share. Because stories like this survive only when someone is willing to carry them out of the dark and leave the door open behind them.